The killing that tied last year's record took place here on Franklin Avenue before dawn. Police say a 37-year-old New Orleans man stopped to use a payphone. He was approached by two men who apparently tried to rob him. One of the men shot the victim twice. He died later during surgery.
Take us back to a time where New Orleans saw a dramatic reduction in crime. What was happening before that reduction? And tell us about some of the things that were done to stem the crime.
You had the pizza kitchen shootings. You had the shooting of tourists. The Big Four housing projects in Central City that had the crack and the turf battles.
This bust here in the B.W. Cooper housing project comes as a result of a 6-week...
I specifically remember the 35 people that were killed in the 6-block area in the Callio housing project, man, in 1 year.
By the time Mark Morial got elected in 1994, there were 424 murders in this city. We were being called the murder capital of America.
Our wish and our hope for the new year is to make the community safer, is to bring the murder rate down.
We had council mayor battles back then, but then everybody came together.
Richard Pennington's first full day with the NOPD lasted just over 12 hours.
I think today I got a sense of the feeling of the command staff. Basically, it was a day for me to listen.
There was this urgency where fixing and solving the problem with crime was bigger than our personalities and our political titles and political careers.
We're beginning to turn the corner.
There were many reasons the mayor, after his long search, finally selected Pennington. One of them is he puts his police officers on the street.
Chief Pennington came into a hornet's nest because there was a lot of corruption within the police department. Within a couple of years, there were 2 officers. One officer ordered a hit on a witness, and then another officer killed several people at the Kim On restaurant out in New Orleans East. So, I mean, it was a bad time, and the federal government was talking about coming in, but Pennington started making a lot of changes. He brought science into the mix. He brought in community policing. He had Eddie Compass running community policing at the time. Ronald Surpass, who later became chief, was moved up to second in command. And by the time he left in 1999, the murder rate was under 200.
We all worked together and came up with a plan, the Pennington Plan. They bludgeoned murder down, is the truth of it. Arrested lots of people, some correctly and some maybe not.
In the late 90s, when we had that tremendous success, the police department hit its high water mark of more than 1,600 officers, the most ever in the NOPD. Now, we're at the lowest point in the modern era, going back to the 40s, of less than 1,000 officers.
At that time, our understanding of crime fighting was based on essentially broken windows.
It's kind of cracking down on nuisance crimes, whether it be litter or graffiti, because, you know, that creates an environment where it, you know, seems to give people liberty to step up the scale of criminal activity into more serious crimes. So they stomp out every little single crime, no matter how minor. That is completely out of fashion in favor of constitutional policing. Just because a neighborhood is filled with litter and graffiti, like, you do not swarm, you know, public nuisance crimes.
We've learned so much since then. Crime now really has become very specific. Problem people, 3 to 5% of any population. Problem places, 5 to 7% of street segments. So in other words, instead of casting a net out on everybody like we did in the 90s, which caught a criminal justice footprint in a lot of people's lives that wasn't needed, now we know from science, released again this year, if you focus on problem people in problem places and you exert a qualified, constitutionally sound policing proactive strategy, you will reduce crime, and it's a halo effect. Now we know a narrow net is effective. But you got to have people to do it, and you got to have people that aren't tied up in something. I think what happened with George Floyd was a horrific murder caught on television that got everybody's attention. And it should have, and it did, and people went to jail, and they should have gone to jail. But it's been outsized in a political process that's been used to castigate an entire industry. Mothers and grandparents in New Orleans who can't watch their children play in the street is far more important than a political ideology of either side. The villainization of policing over the last 3 or 4 years, I am afraid to tell you, I think has taken a hold, right? Not every cop's a bad cop. Not every system's a bad system.
The purpose of Blue at the Zoo was to promote positive interactive experiences with New Orleans police, but Tuesday, Audubon announced it was canceling next week's event, citing feedback from people in the community as well as outside the community who felt the event could be unintentionally divisive rather than inclusive.
How do you tell people that it's okay for the Audubon Zoo to refuse to give you a party after they got a few emails? Let me tell you, that's a seminal moment for me. When I talk to men and women in the police department, put yourself in the mind of a police officer working by themselves at night between the Industrial Canal and Crowder Boulevard and say, are these people really supporting us? Constitutional policing means that you follow the law in how you stop people, how you question people, how you serve warrants, how you do investigations, how you take statements. It is a winner. When I was chief of police in New Orleans, we were no shrinking violets. We arrested 86 police officers when I was chief. When I was in Nashville, we created the first law in decision by the state Supreme Court that if you lie, you get fired. So there's people who are holding police officers accountable, and there's still going to be errors that we just have to find a way to come together. Villainization separates people. Community policing brings people together.
That's when I was chief. That's when I was chief. That was when I was chief. I'd go to a different area. And so we put a lot more money in social programs. Yeah. And this is when Vice President Gore came to see me and give me an award personally.
So, in looking at some of the pictures that we just saw, and seeing obviously the impact that you have had on the members of the community, there was an emphasis when you were chief of community policing.
Right.
How can we, or are we even doing that today within OPD with community policing? How can we bring what you did then to this current police force?
You know, we had a lot of resources from the federal government through the Weed and Seed grants. And we utilize those resources to their optimal efficiency. I wanted a holistic approach on dealing with crime and not just putting people in jail. We didn't look at crime as something that we could solve by enforcement. We looked at something that we could do about it from a preventative standpoint, where if people could get to a certain socioeconomic level, they wouldn't steal, they wouldn't commit crimes. And when we looked at it from the perspective that most of these people that we talked to that had committed crimes, basically they wanted to feed their families, they wanted a better way of life, but they felt that they were against a wall, that they had no way to get a job. So what we did, we got with the Sewage and Water Board, we got with the Electrical Union, we got with the Plumbers Union, the Carpenters Union, and we had like a job fair in the desired housing development. Anybody that wanted a job, we got them a job. We had 10 garbage trucks. We had scores of tow wagons. We had young people come in from these church groups all over the country. We had over 150 volunteers. Desire in Florida looked Disney clean. That development had never been cleaned like that ever before. We had the station actually in the development. That was one big advantage we had. We actually had our police station in the public housing development. People thought I was crazy when I asked them to do that.
All of these programs sound amazing. Was there any proof or any way for you to show that this was working, it was effectively curbing crime during that time?
Well, we had a 73% reduction in murders. We had a 26% reduction in overall crime. Vice President Al Gore recognized our program as the top weed and seed program in the nation. When you put fewer people in jail and crime goes down,